In this video, we will be talking about body mapping. Feel free to pause the video at any time to extend your time spent mapping. Approximately 1 to 2 minutes is a good rule of thumb. Body mapping is the process of putting one's attention on points of location in or on the body. This creates cellular activity in the area, activates sensory nerves, and increases sensory data to the place and grid cells in the sensory motor cortex of the brain. This creates an update of the brain's map of the body. When the brain has an accurate, up-to-date map of the body, it can also map the body in relationship to the external environment. This in turn allows the body to choose the sympathetic or parasympathetic mode of operation most appropriate for the moment. In the long run, this allows unconscious nervous system adaptability. When paying attention to points of location in or on the body, I am truly looking for a location, not a sensation. For example, most people know exactly where their elbow is. They don't have to look at it, they don't have to touch it, they just know where it is. When one is paying attention to their body in this manner, it not only allows my brain map to update, but it also allows my brain to send out different motor signals that are generally adaptive patterns rather than sympathetic reflexes. For today, one point of location is going to be your oral frenulum. That's the ligament that attaches the underneath side of your tongue to your oral floor. Your second point of location is going to be your chin. If the frenulum is a little bit elusive, just pick a point that's on the center underneath side of your tongue. If you imagine two pictures on the wall and you put your attention on one picture and then the other picture, back to the first picture and then the second picture, this is an analogy for mapping. To apply this analogy to mapping, you would put your attention on your frenulum and then your chin, back to your frenulum, back to your chin, and continue to take your attention back and forth between these 2 points of location for about 2 minutes. This is mapping. As you continue to put your attention on these 2 points of location, notice if anything starts to change. For example, the shape or the posture of your tongue might start to be different. Perhaps you have a sense that your tongue starts to be more wide or more narrow. Or maybe the tip of your tongue starts to touch a different part of your oral cavity. More specifically, maybe you have a sense that the frenulum changes its distance to your chin. Research tells us that when we put our attention on 2 points of location for 2 minutes, this habituates this particular sensory motor loop for 15 minutes. If I were to do this several times sprinkled throughout my day for 7 to 10 days, this allows me to input a new sensory motor pattern. Let's pause our mapping for a moment and talk about some of the movement that is frequently layered with mapping. If you sit with your knees a little bit apart, your feet slightly in front of your knees, and allow your posture to be organic so you're not sitting in any particular way. If you then imagine a ribbon or a stripe that goes from the very top of your breastbone all the way down to your pubic bone and divides your body into 2 equal right and left sides. This is your center line. It has many anatomical parts associated with it, but for now, just imagine this ribbon or stripe. If you take that ribbon and shift it over to one side, and then shift it over to the other side, your tailbone, spine, and your back body will go the same direction as your center line. If you imagine that you are wedged between your screen door and your front door, and you could only go side to side, this is a side shift. If we add mapping to this movement, we would shift our center line over to one side, pause, and put your attention on your frenulum and your chin for about 3 to 5 seconds, and then shift over to the other side, pause again, put your attention on your frenulum and your chin again, shift back over, pause, put your attention on your 2 points of location, shift back the other way, pause, and put your attention on those 2 points again. And continue this move, pause, map formula for about 2 minutes. As you continue this process, you might start to have a sense that something about your tongue starts to change. Perhaps something about its shape or its posture starts to be different. Or perhaps you have a sense that the tongue moves side to side. Perhaps it gets closer to the teeth on one side and then gets closer to the teeth on the other side. And it might go the same way that your center line is going, or perhaps it goes the opposite direction that your center line is moving in. And then just bring yourself back to center. Moving on to a different movement. This time you're going to take your center line and turn it to one side, and then turn it to the other side. Your tailbone and your back body will go the opposite direction as your center line. This is a seated rotation. At most, your center line will go to the 45-degree angles on each side, but notice that it is a very small movement, and my entire center line is going to one diagonal, and my entire center line goes to the other diagonal. If again we pair this with mapping, you'll turn your center line to one side and pause, and put your attention on your frenulum and your chin for about 3 to 5 seconds again. And then rotate your center line the other direction. Pause once again and put your attention on your frenulum and your chin. Rotate, pause, and put your attention on your 2 points. Rotate, pause, and again put your attention on those same 2 points. Move, pause, and map. And move, pause, and map. And continuing for about 1 to 2 minutes. Once again, on those pauses where you're mapping, you might notice that something starts to shift again about your tongue shape or posture. Or you might have a sense that something about your tongue changes as you're rotating from one diagonal to the other diagonal. And again, you might have a sense that your tongue is perhaps moving closer to the teeth on one side of your oral cavity and then over to the teeth on the other side of the oral cavity. Or more specifically, maybe you have a sense that the frenulum moves side to side within your oral cavity. And then just bring yourself back to center. Lastly, we're going to take your center line forward and then take your center line backwards. And you'll notice that again, the movement is very small and the top of my head is staying roughly parallel to the ceiling as I go forward and back. I'm going to turn to the side, and again, you'll notice how small the movement is and that my head is staying roughly level with the ceiling as I take my center line forward and I take my center line backwards. If we apply mapping, this time we're going to be a little bit more specific. When you take your center line forward, pause and get a sense of the distance of your frenulum to the chin. You can be very specific and measure it, say, inches, or get more of an abstract sense of the distance of your frenulum to the chin. And then take your center line backwards, pause again, and reevaluate the distance of your frenulum to your chin. Take your center line forward, pause, get a sense of that distance. Take your center line back, pause, get a sense of that distance. You might have a sense that regardless of which direction your center line is in, that the distance of your frenulum to the chin is always the same. Or perhaps you have a sense that the distance is closer one direction and further the other direction. Whatever the case may be, start to track a pattern. Over time, you might have a sense that perhaps the pattern maintains. Maybe the pattern completely changes. Or maybe it's the same pattern, but it's modified a bit. You might have a sense that other things about your tongue start to change as well. The width perhaps changes. Maybe the tip of the tongue changes where it's pointing or what part of your oral cavity it's touching. And then if you just bring yourself back to center. While any movement can be done while mapping, these are my favorite when sitting. I like to use simple, repetitive movement that apply to common natural human movements such as walking. However, mapping can be done when you're cooking a meal, lifting weights at the gym, or going for a hike. It all counts. Happy mapping!